We're recording.
Got it.
Lovely. Welcome to Rebecca's Room. Thank you so much for taking time this evening to be with me. And this is an opportunity for us to look at the 7 principles of leadership that I have created for my Beyond Limits program, which is a peer group coaching program for 6 months, available to anyone who is a leader in their own lives, their business, their career, somebody else's business, community, home. I don't really define leaders by title. I tend to define it by how people show up. So it's a program that is available to everyone, and it's really just today is just an opportunity to have a look at those principles, see what they bring up for you, have a little bit of discussion around those, and then tell you a little bit about the program. This is by no means a sell. I don't sell, but I do have an incredibly powerful program that I'm really deeply passionate about. I run it in-house for certain companies, and also I have an open program, and the impact and the value and the results that we're getting within those groups is so incredible that, as I say, it's not a sell, it's more a share, because I think it'd be very amiss of me not to offer this to people as an opportunity. So I'm going to do my little tech bit here and try and share my screen. And this is where it could all go horribly wrong, because tech is not my thing, especially not on a Wednesday evening. So let's see if we can do this. There we can, but I've skipped right to the end. So let's go back to the beginning of that. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, so the first thing really I want to talk about is why this program is called Beyond Limits, because my belief, and Paulo Coelho agreed with me on this, is that when we get to really know ourselves is when we go beyond what our known limits are. And these limits are often created by learned experience, by conditioning, by what we've been told, often from a very early age. So we tend to sort of take on these beliefs from when we're children and into often young adulthood, teenage young adulthood. So we sort of create this narrative, either ourselves or from other people, at a time in our lives when we're really just finding ourselves. And often, and you might have an experience of this, Sally, is often it's because we're trying to fit in.
Yeah.
So it's not about knowing ourselves, it's about becoming who we think we need to be to fit in with the crowd. Yeah, which is so often the case when we're young, and we want to be liked, we want to have friends, we want to be part of the cool gang or whichever gang we choose to be. So what I'm challenging or inviting, not challenging, maybe challenging sometimes, inviting people into is really getting to know ourselves by going beyond our limits. And then as we get to know ourselves more, we can go even further beyond, because then our limits actually grow as we get to know ourselves. And the great thing about this is it becomes limitless, because the more we know, we push it a little bit further, and then we know a little bit more, and we've moved on a little bit, so we can see a little bit further. So that's where, and as most of you, anyone listening to this on recording knows, I love a quote. So we have a few quotes thrown in this evening as well. So what is that? I'd be really interested, Sally, as you're here, is to understand what that means to you. I know you run your own business, you're growing your business. Tell us a little bit about that as well. That'd be lovely to hear from you, but also what this quote might mean for you.
So I think it's stepping out and stepping up and stepping further away from where you're comfortable. For me, I'm not technically embracing. So for me to do a video or go online or have my photos done is a massive issue for me. But that's me going out and being seen, being visible. That's me going beyond my limits. So I completely understand that. And as a younger person, as a child, I completely agree. We want to fit in, we want to belong, we people please, until we get to a point where we go, oh, I don't know if I like what I'm doing or who I want to be with. So I completely echo your comments.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. And I think it was Steve Chandler who said, I think it was Steve, who said that, who's known as the godfather of coaching, who said that the thing that occurs is we create that person when we're in our teens, and then they literally become the CEO of our life.
Yeah.
You know, they end up running our entire life. And part of what I'm doing in this, in the work that I do with people individually, but also in this program, is really unlearning all of that, stripping back all those stories that we've decided are who we are, and questioning them and challenging them. Is that who you are? Is that really who you are?
Yeah.
Well, why is this how you're still showing up 20 years later, when actually your experience around you is nothing like that anymore, and you don't want to fit in, you want to stand out, as you say, you want to stand out and be visible,
and to say no, and to say no in a way that is kind.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And kindness and compassion run through all of this work, because as leaders, often we feel like we can't be that, and that to be effective leaders, we can't show kindness and we can't show compassion for ourselves or other people. And that really is not a belief that I hold at all. The power of the word "and" here is I can be a great leader and be kind and compassionate to people, but have boundaries in place, you know, and have ways of having conversations with people where you're still really showing up in your leadership, but with kindness. So yeah, and just Sally, tell us a little bit about before we go into the principles, if you're happy to share a little bit about your business, because it's fascinating, and I know you, and I've worked with you within your business and engaged your services, but just for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you. I am the homologist. The homologist is an expert in your home, empowering you to make the right choices, whether you decide to stay and improve and future-proof your home, or you want to sell and then move on to your next home. So I have 3 services effectively. One for homeowners who don't know what they want to do, and to be able to go in and understand their lifestyle and how they can improve their home. For those homeowners who then decide to sell to make the property presentable so they can achieve the best out of their greatest investment, their home, and then to move on to the next home, which is finding their next home, whether it's a rental or a purchase. So there are three areas there.
Yeah. So when I share this, if you're watching this on recording, you'd have got this on via an email, and I'm going to put all Sally's details on there. And if you are in any of those stages or want to just reach out, then please do, because Sally is brilliant at what she does, absolutely brilliant, and helped me move possibly on more than one occasion, because it's a hobby I have, moving house. Sally's so good, I just keep doing it again and again. So yes, thank you for sharing that. So let's have a look at the principles, which are, I did a Rebecca's Room earlier today, and we had a group of people and had a different discussion. These 2 recordings will be totally different, because I show up totally different in these, and obviously we have a different group of people. But one of the things I was showing was that these principles were something I put together when I was putting this program together. They're something that I intuitively use with most people that I'm working with on a one-to-one basis anyway. But obviously when you're running a program, having a little bit more structure and some principles by which the group can move forward I felt was really helpful and of value. But what I do want to share is that these principles are not a rule book. They are not by any way an exhaustive list. One of the things that I really love in the work that I do, and I know there's a lot of great valuable leadership programs and courses and books and all of that out there, but they tend to be very prescriptive. You know, this is how you will be a good leader. This is what you must do to be a good leader. And we see it on LinkedIn all the time. Part of, I believe, being a good leader is being open to different ideas. So the last thing I want to do is then say, these are the principles and this is all that leadership is about. So these are principles, and they are an invitation to explore them in a very open and expansive way. They are not exhaustive at all in terms of a list, but they give us something to work with. So the principles, and we had a great discussion around this morning, and I've got some books here that I'm going to reference because they really fitted in with what we were talking about. So the first principle that I have, and I'd love to get your feedback, Sally, as we go through these, is that to be a great leader, and as I say, by definition, by leader, I don't necessarily mean by title. I believe that we are all leaders in our own lives, if we choose to be, and therefore we all have the opportunity to lead, whether it's ourselves, teams, businesses, homes, communities, whatever, charities, whatever it might be. But to be a leader, you must first lead yourself. So the question I posed to the group earlier today, Sally, was what does that mean for you? If you were to think about being a leader and leading yourself, what are the things that evokes for you?
So, interesting question, because I think leading is also guiding.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to the dogs that I've had. I have had Old English sheepdogs and German shepherds.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are about the Old English sheepdog is about being part of a pack,
mm-hmm.
being hidden because they're protecting the pack from the wolf, but also being able to herd and guide them to safety.
Mm-hmm.
German Shepherd, definitely on point, out there looking for anything that they can deal with, that they can protect, and also guiding forward as follow me because I know the West Way. So two different completely dog breeds, but with a very similar theme. And I believe that we all come with guidance inside us. I don't believe I'm a teacher, but what I do is I teach and I guide my clients to get from A to B, which I think as a coach, as yourself, you do exactly the same thing in a far more structured way. Mine's very much kinetic. It's a lot of, should we try that? Oh, it doesn't work there. Should we try this? Oh, that maybe work. Maybe we need it. So I'm a bit more hands-on, physically and tangibly stuff. But I think the leading, sometimes you can go, being an Aries, I want to go from A to B in the straightest line, shortest way possible. But sometimes leading has to go through the diversion, stopping in the queue, coming out a different side, going a different way. So I think it's adapting to whatever you're faced with.
Yeah, absolutely. Love all of that. And as always with this stuff, so I was sharing with the group earlier today, and you know this, Sally, because you've been in my home, you've been with me, is I love books. I have thousands of books around me. I have this belief that we just learn by osmosis. So even the books I haven't got to reading yet, I'm learning from them all the time. But I also have a practice where I will just get drawn to books if I'm doing something like this, or if I'm working with a client, or if I'm just at home myself. And I will just find a book, get drawn to it, and I will open it, knowing that I'll find some wisdom. Something you shared there about, that wisdom we have within, and that leading ourselves sometimes is going within and connecting with our own inner wisdom, our own inner guidance, is really, really valuable. And someone like yourself, or someone like me as a coach, or someone leading a team is often the person, like you say, who's guiding people back to what they might already know, excuse me, or what they might already feel or think or believe that they have lost connection with, or just haven't joined up the dots, that this is something that would help me move forward in this place. So as you were sharing what you're sharing there about, I love with the dogs as well, about what you're sharing there about guiding, and you mentioned something about not being linear, and often as a leader we do have to create the idea of linear from here to here, because we've got to give people that vision to get from here to here and guide people and get people to come with us. But as a leader, that can trip us up, because if things start to go a little bit awry, or we go on a diversion, a couple of things can happen. We can either get diverted when we really shouldn't, and as a leader, we need to keep our eye on where we are trying to get to. So that's one version. But sometimes as a leader, we do have to go with those diversions. We have to be agile and adapt and keep everyone with us without rigidly sticking to this is the route we were going to take. Right, because that can have us miss what needs to be different.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please do.
I almost think it's like having the Old English sheepdog is just going to run around, and the shepherd's going to run, just make sure everyone's in the same place, we're going in the same direction. You might have to pop off, or you might have to stop, we might have to do, but actually slowly, step by step, we're moving in the same direction. And I think that's part of the, as you rightly say, we've all got to be aware of it and be adaptable to everybody who's involved in whatever we're doing at that time, because some people don't listen, don't process in the same speed as I might talk when, and I'm like you, passionate, talk very quickly, and I have to remember to slow down, breathe, take a sip of water. Some people are ahead of me, but they don't actually know where we're going. Some people are behind. Some people are not even there because they don't understand the language. So it's very much about listening to what everyone's saying, and then as you do as a coach, is to collect it all together and put it in a big container, whatever, net, whatever you want to call it, and then approach it in the way and present it to a way that everybody is comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes absolutely perfect sense. And also, I think the other thing in that is obviously that we're talking about leading others. That process that you've just talked about as well, and being aware of all of that, is also relevant for ourselves, which comes back to the leading ourselves piece. And often leaders don't slow down, take a breath, check in where they're at. Have they got ahead of themselves? Have they fallen behind themselves? Do they need to just land and find out where they are and assess the situation? And sometimes as leaders, we don't give ourselves that opportunity to lead ourselves because we feel this pressure of people are waiting for us, people expect us to know, you know. So I think that's really, and that's one of the things that this program offers, is the time to do that, to slow down, to really think about, how do I lead myself? What am I noticing about myself that is helpful here? And coming back to the book story that I said about, so I chose 3 books that I knew would be relevant for today and opened them at certain pages, and 2 came out this morning, and one just fits in with what we're talking about there. And this is a great book. And I'll share this in the email that will come out with the recording. But this is a book that I actually now give to pretty much anyone who works with me gets a copy of this book. It's a very unique book in that it's one of a kind, really. It's the only book that really speaks to how to be coached rather than how to coach. There are if I haven't given you a copy yet, Sally, next time we're together, I will get you a copy, or I'll send it to you. It is really, it's a guide for how to be coached. Now, obviously, as a coach, I've got clients that I'm working with, but also I get coached as well. So it's irrelevant. And what I do is I say to people, and you'll see mine's got markings all over it, is these books are not to be kept on the shelf to look good. These are like guidebooks. These are scribble on them, highlight them, use them, flick into them, reference them. So yes, we'll get you a copy. So where I opened to, though, was so I randomly opened a page and knew that it would be relevant to something we were talking about today. And it talks about exactly what you've talked about there. So I'm going to just read from it. It's from the summary of a chapter called Improving Your Coachability. It says, coaching is not a linear journey. So just as we've talked there about leadership or knowing where we're going, coaching is not a linear journey in which you simply go from point A to point B. It's a meandering path that takes a good deal of time to travel. Even if you're excited about making progress, remember that patience is key. Take a moment to slow down, center yourself, practice gratitude that you've come this far. Instead of worrying about Instead of worrying that you haven't achieved perfect coachability, I haven't reached there yet, which isn't actually a thing. Treat yourself with love and kindness. We're all on our own journey, and the thing that matters most is not giving up. And someone mentioned this today about the idea of great leadership being, keep going. We don't give up, we keep going. We might have to look at the way we're getting there, but we keep going. Particularly if you're new to this process, your best ability is coachability. Okay. So, and that gives you and that they have some tenets in here about being coachable. And it says, if you're giving yourself the best chance to succeed. And this is the same for leaders. So again, this is this principles idea. These are just like principles you can come back to give yourself the best possibility. And, that obviously, as I say, randomly chosen that page, but anything in this book would have been relevant. But really that talks about something that we talk about in the program, because it's a peer group. People are going to be at very different stages. They are going to have very different experiences of coaching and being coached and perhaps coaching others. They are going to be at very different points in their business or their career. And that's one of the fabulous things about being part of a community. And I know, Sally, you and I have talked about belonging in spaces. Is what I want to create within this container is a community that supports each other, there's no comparison, there's no competition, there's nowhere to get to, because what we've just uncovered in that is your coaching journey is going to be, often you'll feel like you've moved forward and then actually something trips you up and you're going to be looking at a different area. And again, how you lead yourself and allow yourself to be coached and learn from all your experiences, part of that, how to be a great leader. So that's principle 1.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, great. Any questions or anything on that, or should we?
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, really fascinating for you. I never knew there was a book on how to be coached, so that's fabulous. Thank you.
It's incredible. I'll get you a copy, Sally. It's really good, and it's, as I say, it's a great book for doing what I've just done, which is, you can read it all the way through, obviously, but sometimes, and I do this, I have these books near me, and if I need a little bit of coaching to come on a call for a client I'm working with, for a situation that's going on in my life, sometimes I'll just open this and it will just give me some questions to ask myself, a process to follow, a little bit of wisdom. So yeah, it's great one to have.
You didn't have any idea what I didn't know I was going to talk about my dogs until the moment I spoke about it. So for you to pick up that, including the words they actually talked about, was a bit serendipitous, wasn't it, really?
And this is the magic, right?
It's wonderful.
Yeah, and something actually to share actually about the work that I do. So anyone watching who hasn't experienced my work before, or wants to know, obviously I'm sharing more about the program here, that is how a lot of my work goes. My curriculum, obviously in a group program like this, there is a bit more of a structure, as I say, and there are these principles, but my curriculum is the people that show up and what's going on for them. And this serendipitous, I know I needed that book, that's the page that I looked at, is the magic that is so often created in these conversations. And then when you bring the magic of people together, so there's normally between 8 and 12 people in these groups, is that magic doesn't just happen with me going, oh, here's a book that I opened today. It's going to be Sally going, oh my gosh, that question you've just come with, can I just share with you my experience this week of working with a client that totally resonates with what you've just asked? Right. And then you're going to have someone else in the group who is going to listen to a learned experience from somebody else, not something from a textbook or a program or whatever it is. It's like real lived experience from someone else, from a peer. And then the magic happens because suddenly that is a great learn for that person. Right?
And it's reality, and
it's real.
And I think the other thing that happens with those sort of conversations is you feel the passion that comes through when you're sharing that. Guess what happened to me type thing. Thank you. Thank you.
Brings that passion forwards. And actually, we're going to skip forward because we've got one in there, a principle called passion is energy. Right. And I'm going to share what I read from the other book, because this all ties together. This came out of the conversation this morning, is that those real lived experiences shared by people in a community who are growing to trust and connect with each other, which is what I do by bringing this group together. And in a lot of the work that I do is we actually tap into, as you say, that heart-led leadership, that emotional human passion that really is what leadership is about. And one of the things that's happened over the last however many years in industrialization, and then in the sort of technology age, and gosh knows where we're going in terms of AI now, is everything is very intellectual, right? We've been taught to not tune into our emotions and our heart, because we're going to solve all our problems from up here somewhere, right? So this leads me, again, very serendipitously, to the other bit that came from another book, which fitted with our discussion this morning and does again today. So this one is called Lead from the Heart. Again, I'll put all the details on the email. Transformational Leadership for the 21st Century, right? And for me, lead from the heart. I can't remember who recommended this book, but for me, I was like, yeah, I need that, because that's how I lead, and that's how I like to coach people, right? So I'm going to read a little bit from this book as well, because it, if I can find the right page, because it totally speaks to what we've just talked about. Okay, so there's 2 paragraphs that I'm going to read. So the idea of leading with any amount of heart flies in the face of our collective belief that the heart acts like kryptonite in business. We associate the heart in the workplace as being soft, sentimental, and anti. Oh God, I can't say the word. Going against driving profit. Sorry, it is late in the evening. My brain has gone. Sentimental and against driving profit. We frown on hurt. In the moment, I was greatly conflicted. So this is the guy that wrote this. I knew that from my own 25 years of leadership experience that people had scaled the tallest mountains for me simply because I recognized their individual genius, helped them to develop it, put it to its best use, and helped them to find gratification in the work they did, which comes back to something in the principles around focus on what excites you. Bring your passion, bring your energy, right? There was no question in my mind, this is the guy that wrote it, Mark Crowley, that heart had been the catalyst for their exceptional achievement. I mean, you can imagine, as I'm reading this book, my passion comes out, because this is everything I talk about, right? And he talks about this being his epiphany moment. He then goes on to talk a little bit about how that he was challenged in writing the book because it's so anti what's out there in most leadership development, that he knew he was going to come up against some resistance to this. So he went and he started doing some research, and obviously there's more and more research now that backs this up. So he has a little bit about that. Then he comes to this paragraph. We've been led to believe the mind is the highest form of intelligence possible, and rarely think to consult the heart as we work to motivate people to perform. We've groomed our leaders to be intellectual, to subordinate feeling, and to purposefully marginalize their hearts. But this mind-driven belief system is flawed. It disconnects leaders from the people they lead and profoundly limits their effectiveness. This because emotions are an innate and human quality found in all people. Emotional energy is the true motivation of the human spirit. It's the force of life. Emotions create action, and with positive emotion, people are virtually limitless in what they can achieve.
Yeah, that's fabulous,
isn't it? The bit that gets me, and I shared this morning, was emotions create action.
Yeah,
it's not up here, right? No, it's not the intellect. It's here. It's what drives us. Another book that I referenced this morning is a great book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. It's called Switch, and it's about when change is difficult, and it's about how they brought together the idea of business change with personal change and development, and brought the two together. And one of the things that they talk about there is, if you want to change something, you've got to tap into the emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because where else does it come from? It's got to drive you. Your gut's your biggest brain. Then it's your heart. Then it's your head, right?
Yeah. So and again, like you say, there's so much science now that's pointing like that gut mind as well, like you say, and that heart. And this so talk to what I was talking about here, which kind of covers off the passion is energy, the focus on what excites you as leaders ourselves. We've got to tap into our heart as well, right? So often we'll focus on what we think everyone else needs, what we should be doing, what we have to do is actually what would happen. And part of the container I create here is, let's just play with the idea that if I ignored my should list for a week and focused on my excites me list, what might occur, right? What might be different in my business if I actually showed up differently as a leader, and I focused on what excites me, and I tapped in to what excites my team, or the people that I'm working with, my clients, my candidates. What might be different? The people that I'm servicing, what might be different? So we create that element of play in here as well. Let's play with these ideas. The world will not stop turning if you show up in your business in a way you've never shown up before, and you'll get results that you would never get doing what you're doing.
That's the really unknown, exciting thing.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, and as leaders, sometimes we forget to have a bit of excitement and a bit of fun. You know, it all becomes very serious, especially for anyone watching who's an entrepreneur. Sally and I were talking off camera before I pressed record here about our businesses, and it can become really heavy because, you know, we've got, you know, bills to meet and clients to service, and we're very, you know, we're striving to provide the very best service we can, but it can all become a bit heavy, right? So when we start focusing on what excites us again, it's often the very thing that had us create the business in the first place, but can get lost in the day-to-day running of it, right? So yeah, another key principle: focus on what excites you, and if you can't do it every day, do it one day a week at least, right? And see what changes, and then you'll get evidence that actually, wow, I'm getting better results, my team are getting better results, we're going beyond what we thought was possible. I might just start doing this every day and see what happens, right?
I think it's also about how when you let that structure in your head go, and I know we have to put the oxygen mask on all the time, but when we let that structure go and, as you say, play or be less formal or be a bit more casual or have a bit of more humor, my whole thing with clients is about humor, because I try, it doesn't work, I don't like that. It's very open, it's very honest, but sometimes you've just got to just be a bit out there. And I call it, you know, my name is rule, so we've got to not have the rules, and it's about being the exception to the rule, but it's being open-minded. And like you say with your coaching as well, I'm sure that it's that listening to the nuances or what's not said, but the behaviors there that you can then pick up and say, have you tried this, have you tried that, have you tried something else? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because it's not made in stone, but it's just a bit of play. So, really important, Rebecca, absolutely.
And I think, you know, the idea that you say about being open, and the next one down here is to be open to receiving, and that is sometimes, you know, be open to receiving is here about support and help, but also it's being open to receiving other ideas, other ways of being. You know, anyone who's showing up in this space wants different results, and if we want different results, we're going to have to try doing different things, right? And I love what you said there about like the you know, introducing the nuances. One of the things in this is these are principles, they're not rules, because actually there are so many different nuances within any situation that I'm going to play with, because sometimes I want you to see the ridiculousn's of a rule you've made or a system that you've got in place. One of my clients, David Stone, how he describes me is she's the voice of contrary reason, because actually I will throw something completely contradictory in to get somebody to see the reason in it, to see that there is something they're not seeing, right? So being open, that leads into really nicely being open to receiving something that our minds will try and close down to, or try and ignore. And often we know we're ignoring them, and we don't want to risk it. We don't want to take that chance, right?
That goes back to heart to head, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? And this is where I want to be. And your head's going, don't be so ridiculous. It's going to cost you this. You're going to do that. It's going to take this time. It's going to be dangerous. Whereas that might be where that excitement is, that you can go, but what if?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And excitement does come from the unknown normally, right? You know, and the slightly risky elements. How do we create excitement? Well, we create it by really getting back into what drives us, what's passionate, you know, what we're passionate about, and where there's an element of, I don't quite know what's going to happen, right? And inviting your team into that as well, or your clients, or whoever you're saying, is also being a great leader, is showing other people that you can lead through the unknown. You can lead through I'm not actually quite sure what's going to happen, but I'm confident in my leadership that whatever happens, we're going to be okay.
And it's also, we're moving forward. Excuse me for interrupting, Rebecca. But it's also about moving forward. So whether it's moving forward in that straight A to B line linear, or whether I'm stuck and I've got to go up here, back down there, across here, whatever we're doing, we're moving forward. And I think that's part of the nature's momentum, is whatever we do, whether we take a step forward, back, sideways, we're doing an action, we're doing a something, which means therefore our whole view changes of what we see, where we are.
Yeah.
And that, I think it's part of.
Yeah, I often talk about that in terms of like you know, when we're working towards a vision, a bit like, you know, like when we're working when we're climbing a mountain. You know, it's you know, and you have your checkpoints as you go up. Like you say, you can't always see the next steps. You can't always see how you're going to get to it until you're there. So you have to, you know, the leader has to hold that vision strong enough that people can see that they can keep moving forward, and then they get to a place where they're like, oh, now I can see what the next steps are, which might, from the original vision, look very different to what mapped out, right? So yeah, I think that's a really, really good point that you bring up there. So yeah, so we've skipped around a little bit, but we're covering them all as we go. It always works out in the end. So one that we missed earlier, or two that we missed earlier, is leadership is built with consciousness. And actually what we've just been doing is exactly that. Consciousness is a really intentional awareness of being awake to who we are, what we're doing, how we're doing it, the results we're getting, the external environment. Consciousness in this sense is something that I really slow down to with people that I work with, because it can be sort of skipped over. And literally, most of us are walking around unconscious most of the time. Our habitual things that we're doing happen unconsciously, and they happen on a default. Now, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation here, they're often connected with the person we created when we were young, and who's driving our business, that CEO we talked about, our inner CEO. And that is where our default programming is coming from. So leadership built with consciousness is about bringing all of that into our consciousness and creating who we want to be. Talk a lot about who we're being. And so we really spend time in that. What can if I bring consciousness intentionally and habitually to the situation, to how I'm showing up, how my team's showing up, how my clients showing up, what in there do I see, and what's possible, and what can I do with it? And this again is a slowing down. We don't often as leaders do this part, and it is so important. It's not so much about what we're doing, it's who we're being. And that comes from the consciousness. So that's something that's a really key principle that we work with. And that can lead us to so many other things, right? You know, because what we become conscious about might be a habit, a system, the niche we're working in, our advertising, our marketing, our coaching, our leadership, whatever it is. There can be so many different avenues to that. The first thing, though, as a great leader is we need to have consciousness. We need to intentionally bring awareness to everything. So I don't know what that brings up for you, Sally, if you've got anything to share on that.
I understand that, and I recognize that to a point where I think for me it's about how best can I serve my clients with what I hear and what I understand from them, and what aspects of my personality and skill set and many years of experience can I bring to amplify that. And excuse me, I'm okay, Mum, thanks. I'm okay. And that allows me to drop into this is right and appropriate for this client at this moment in time. Tomorrow, next week, it might be different, depending on what I'm hearing, what I'm listening, what I'm feeling, because like you, I'm kinetic. So if I'm with them, then I'm going to go, oh, you don't really mean that, and I would challenge them on that. So I think for me, it's about really understanding where they think they want to be, and actually the reality might be something different. So my guidance will be in parallel with them for a while, because we've got to make sure we've got that relationship connected. And then once I know them, which generally is within about 5 minutes, it's about perhaps we could do something different, or perhaps have you thought about, or what happens if? And there we go on the Sally route.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and this is one of those. And the words come up a couple of times this evening, and I know it's a word that you and I use a lot. Is those nuances, what that consciousness does, and practicing it. So obviously, what you've just described there for you is quite habitual, but to some people, it isn't, or they're not conscious of what they're doing. So bringing some consciousness to it and allows us to see it, enhance it and amplify it when we need to, and also bring in that idea of nuances. So we're not blindly following things that we've learned, regardless of what actually is in front of us, right? And that one of the things you said there, and this is an invitation that I bring in and get people to do, is really start to learn to listen differently. We're not listening to agree or disagree or sell to. What we're listening to is to understand, to bring all this consciousness and learning and knowledge and wisdom that we have to that understanding, and then to come back with something that is actually really attuned to that situation with all the different nuances of it. That's how my coaching works, because that's what I'm doing when I'm coaching somebody. It's what you're doing when you're working with someone around their home, right? That only comes with consciousness, and it needs practicing.
And I think you're right. And I think with the people that you surround yourself with, especially in your coaching world, which is very different from my world, is that you listen and you hear, and the two sometimes marry and the two sometimes don't. And it's that bit in the middle that you and I are very good at going, what's that bit, and how do we get that bit, because that's the bit that's going to help you grow or move or what have you. And it's a really fascinating subject.
It is a fascinating subject, and I love the fact that you've referenced that, because one thing that I would like anyone who's hearing this, listening to this, to understand is that is achievable, attainable for anybody.
Yes.
You know, it is a practice, it's a learn. Some of us have a sort of more natural, innate leaning towards that, and it is something that you can learn through practice and through bringing awareness to your own way of being. So my offering to you there is, if that's something that you're listening and you're thinking, that's not really me, or I don't really get that, we will get you it, right? We will practice it and we will learn it so that you can bring that. Everyone is capable of it. It's just that it's not how we've been taught. Don't get me started on the education system, right? But from a very young age, going back to that CEO that's running the show, right? We are not taught this way. We are taught to listen, to agree or disagree, to remember or not remember, and to think about when we can apply that in the way that it's been taught to us. We're not taught consciousness.
No, right? And I think also in the environment in which perhaps you were brought up in, to be what I call it is respectfully curious. Some people call it nosy, and I've been told I'm nosy or inquisitive, but I'm like you are, I'm absolutely fascinated about people and how they are and why they do things and whatever they have to say, because I'm not going to be like them.
No.
Because we're all individual. And so for me, I tell people I'm naturally curious, and I'm respectfully curious, and I will ask a lot of questions, but the more I know about you, the more I can help you. Exactly the same way as you have your business, Rebecca. We might ask in very different ways.
Yes, absolutely.
We're getting to the same goal.
Yes.
And the people who don't have our tendencies or abilities or skills, whatever you want, or talents, whatever you call it, you're absolutely right, can learn. But also if they're around people like ourselves who continually ask why or how or where or when or tell me or are interested, I think they will automatically pick that up too.
Yes.
In that peer group, if you're in a group session.
Which you know is what's created here. We can, and often we're very good at doing it with other people, right?
Yeah.
So and we can see it for other people, which again is why these groups, and we've got there to thrive, we must be connected, and there's lots of reasons why we need to be connected. That's a very human thing, but one of them is that actually in that group context, like you say, we can start seeing it in other people, and generally if we can see it in other people, it's something we need to see for ourselves. So it's a very expansive way of being able to bring more and more consciousness to our own leadership. And the other principle you very, very kindly brought in, this wasn't planned at all, is the idea of bringing yourself into everything that you do, your whole self. And you just talked about that in terms of how you work with people and how you are with people. And this is something else that as leaders, that heartfelt bit that we just talked about, is we've come up from here, like intellectually we need to connect with people, which is true, but also we need to get to know the whole us and the whole of everybody else that we're working with. And this does not equate to everyone bringing all their personal stuff into work or into every conversation. It's not that. It's getting to know the whole person. Everyone that I work with, we work holistically. There is no part of anybody's life, of anyone that I'm working with, that is not available to be discussed in our coaching container. And that's the same for this program as well. And what that does is it not only allows the individual that I'm working with as a leader to bring their whole self in a way that they've never possibly been invited to do before and explore all of that, but also then the ripple effect of that is they go out and they start doing this with the people that they work with and that they lead. We've been taught for so long to take the person out of leadership, but you're leading people. You can't take the person out of leadership because the people are people. Right. So that's something about bringing our whole self. And that's one of the things in these containers that you'll be very much invited to do. And that again ties in with this connection, this community. You're going to be in a container where we create space and time, safety, belonging, trust, openness, a willingness to come in vulnerably into a space with other leaders who are all as vulnerable as you are, by the way, despite what they might have up to begin with. We see that all break down. The great thing about that is you are practicing and learning what you can then go out and take into your leadership. And vulnerability is a strength. It is not a weakness. Again, we've been taught very much in this space that it's a weakness and that you can't show it. It's not true. Okay, when we show up vulnerably, we learn more, we're more open to receiving, we're more open to being connected, and we are far, far better leaders when we can show that vulnerability. And this again is what this container is for. So we've whizzed through all those principles. So I'm just going to go on and share a little bit more and tell you a little bit about the program as well. So again, I love a quote. So I love this one. The fears we don't face become our limits. So one of the things in that lovely container that we've created, that safe place where vulnerability is welcomed, is understood, is met with curiosity, with innocence, with interest, right, is that we are able to put the fears into that space that we face, and they then no longer become limits to what we are able to do, right? So it's shining a light on the dark areas is the best way to describe it. And I think if we actually think about our limits and where we have limited ourselves in the past, where we are currently limiting ourselves in our business, in our life, in our relationships, in whatever part of the life that you're exploring, often it's fear-based.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's limiting us, not our capacity to learn and grow, not our capability, not our lack of clients or opportunities. It's that there is a fear that if we face it, those limits just dissolve. So I think that's just worth bringing in here as something that we will work with, which can challenge people. But that's part of what I do in this container. Is it is going to be a challenge for you. So Beyond Limits Leadership, this just sort of summarizes some of the things we've been talking about. So the idea is, what if we were to go beyond, and what if there were no limits, right? That's kind of where this came from. So what if we were to go beyond anything you've ever learned before, right? So that's what's on offer here. What you already know, what you already believe, your own bullshit, right? Your own BS that has you stay small and fearful often. and your own known limits, right? They're going to dissolve away, right? They're going to go beyond those to the point at which then you're going to have new limits, right? And then we go beyond those, right? The great thing about, the ceiling becomes the floor, right? If we can see the limit that we're at and we work to it, suddenly that goes out the way, that becomes the floor, and we set a new ceiling again, and we continuously do that. And sometimes we sink back down, as we talked about earlier. It's not linear, right? Sometimes we will go crashing right back down to the beginning, right? And that's okay too, because that is part of the journey. And then what if there were no limits? What if we started from a place, rather than thinking about the what ifs, buts and maybes, is if we actually came from the places there are no limits. What if there were no limits for me, for you, for your business, for your life, for what you can do, and for who you can be? What if we came from that place and created from that place, right? And in that, there's going to be learning, there's going to be unlearning, there's going to be knowing. There's a lot we already know that we don't access because we don't slow down and we don't center and we don't tap into our own innate leadership, which we all have. There's going to be a lot about who we're being, and then there is going to be doing as well, because this can end up being very intellectual, very theoretical. What I want to create is transformation, and the way we do that is we spend time playing, exploring it, and bringing all those things in, and then we go and do it, right? Because that's where the change happens. Yeah. And Sally, I know you and I have talked about this many times before, right? We can learn more and more and pick up more and more information and knowledge, but if we don't actually go and apply it, it just stays up here, right?
Yeah.
So just to summarize what the Beyond Limits program is, it's a supportive peer group and community. It creates that sense of belonging. It creates a safe container. It's a 6-month leadership development program. It is for anyone who is a leader by definition, by title, by their own choice, as we talked about earlier. They can currently be leading themselves, other people. They might be looking at doing that in the future. They can come from any industry. This is an open program, and I actually love having people from various different walks of life, different industries, different scales of business, because that all adds to the wonderful tapestry of information and knowledge and learned experience that we can bring. We have monthly group coaching sessions. It's all online. This is all an online program. We also have then the option of individual coaching sessions, which I'll come back to in a second. And then we also have monthly accountability sessions. So this is where we have some space in the month to explore, to play, to learn, to create, to experiment, to talk to each other, to share. And then we have accountability to go, okay, so what did we decide we were going to do with all of that? And how's that gone? Have we done it? What's got in the way? Why, and then we feed back. So there is accountability to move this forward into transformation. And then it's actually starting officially in October. What I'm offering is anyone who signs up will get some bonus sessions in September, which once I know who's there, we will put those together, but they'll be on key specific topics that I think will add to your experience. I think this we've already talked about. How can you get out of your own way? What if your leadership was limitless? What would life look like then? What will your business look like then? So that's what the invitation is here. There's the principles that we talked about earlier that we went through. And then I'm just going to skip in a minute into the website just to share with you what the program is, what the offer is. But this is something that I have always believed in for myself, and believe in anyone that I work with, is that this starts with loving ourselves. Love is at the center of all of this. We've talked about that in terms of this heart-led leadership, right? And we've for so long been told it isn't. The truth is it is, and it starts with ourselves. And you mentioned earlier about putting our oxygen mask on first as individuals and as leaders is very important. But even before that, it's like, how can I love myself to invest in me? To give myself permission for the time, care, and attention that I deserve, whatever way that looks like. And what I see out in the world right now in entrepreneurs, in leaders, is that this is the bit that they miss. They look after everybody else. They invest in other people. They invest in training and leadership programs for other people in their teams, people around them. If they work for organizations or own or run companies, and not for themselves. one of my clients shared in some feedback. He said, you know what, for years and years and years, I did this for everyone else in the business, and I never did it for myself. And I'd never had that done for me. I started my business quite young, so I didn't have that. So this is my invitation, however this looks for you, whatever you take away from today, whether you talk to me, anyone listening who wants to talk to me about the program or wants to learn about, to join up, if all you take away from this is to love yourself a little bit more and invest some time, care and attention in yourself, then I would be happy that you go away from that session, this session, with that in mind.
Yeah.
So let me just skip. So again, this is going to test my technical abilities. So we'll stop sharing that, and then we're going to share something else. Okay. Here we go. Are you bowled away by my technological?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. Especially late on a Wednesday evening. So what I wanted to just point you guys towards, anyone who's listening, is go and have a look for more details. Connect with me and talk to me is the best way to do this. But just where you can get some more basic information about the program is on my website, so complementcoaching.com, and it's under Beyond Limits. And here it talks about everything we've talked about today, really, and a little bit more about the program. You'll see some of the quotes that we've used about who you should be to enroll. But also here is the investment. We just talked about investing in ourselves. So I just want to quickly run through that. So the program that is on offer, and as I say, this is my passion, right? This is where I bring my energy. So this is purely me offering out there as a gift to people to invest in for themselves. So you can join the program. Your investment for that is 2,895 plus VAT for the 6-month program, to be part of that peer group, to have the monthly sessions, the monthly accountability sessions, the bonus sessions if you sign up now. And what you need to bring is your time, energy and attention, and commitment is probably something that should be on there. And that's your investment in that. The groups are anywhere between, 8 is the kind of 8 to 12 people in a group. So they're not large groups. You're not going to get lost. You're going to have lots of opportunity to bring your questions and your shares and your insights. And that's, we make sure that everyone is invited into that. So it's not one of these big programs where you're just lost in a big group. So that's the first offer you have. That's the standard. You can then take it up a level and add a bit of bling. So you can take it up to gold. And this is the same. So you get everything I've just talked about for the program, but within that you get 3 individual sessions, coaching sessions with me. So you have a little bit more time to take what you're learning in the group, all the fantastic knowledge, wisdom, learns, experience, etc. And then something we've talked about tonight, Sally, is look at the nuances for you personally with all your unique gifts, but also perhaps the nuances of your business or your market or your vision or your dream. You get a little bit more time to explore that and bring that to life through those sessions. And you can take those 3 sessions anytime during the 6-month program. So you can do them whenever you want. And then if you're feeling very, very, very brave, you can go all out and go for the platinum level, which is, so did I say the price on the last one? I didn't. So that one's 4,395 for the extra ones. And then if you want to go up, and this is all of these options, by the way, are fantastic value. You will not find this kind of level of support for this kind of investment in many other places. And obviously you get all my magic as well. So that's, that's priceless, really. Priceless. That is absolutely priceless. So, but if you want to go full on, the platinum level is basically, and this for me is where I really light up. This is my ideal sweet spot, if you like, is that someone comes along and they say, do you know what, I'm going to go all out for this. So what you get for this, for 5,895, again, which is a fantastic price, is you get everything of the Beyond Limits program. But what you get is so that happens in 6 months, but over the course of 12 months, you get 8 individual sessions with me, either during the 6 months, after the 6 months, anytime within a space of a year, to really embed and integrate and transform your leadership over the course of a year. And I promise you that what you learn in that 12 months from being in the group, from being in the program, and that community that you build in there isn't going to stop when the 6-month program stops. Obviously, these people are going to become collaborators, connections, colleagues, friends, soulmates, right? That's going to carry on anyway. But what you get with this is actually the program then you really bring it to life with 8 individual sessions taken anytime during that year. And that's the deepest dive into the power of dynamic coaching with aligned action and accountability. And what you learn in that year will last you for years and years and years to come with whatever you then do in your future. Yeah. So those are the 3 packages that are on offer. So go along and have a look. And as I say, anyone who's listening, if you've got questions, the best thing to do is reach out and ask me. There's no obligation. If you jump on a call with me and we have a conversation and this isn't right for you, there is no hard sell. I'm not going to try and convince you that this is what you need. If I think it's something that would add value in your for your leadership, which it does, right? But I will be very honest about that with you. But it will be a invitation to invest in yourself, as we talked about there. So, Sally, any questions from you or any insights, observations, anything? And then I will close off because we all need to go to bed. It's well past my bedtime.
I'll get a cup of tea. Yeah. No, thank you. That was really interesting, actually. It was great to hear how you serve your clients and put your program together, because that's a side of you I don't know, obviously. So that was really interesting, and I will take some time to consider that and go to your website and have a look. And
fabulous.
Thank you. Really
well, no, thank you for being here. Thank you for all your insights and your shares. Obviously, this is going to be shared. Anyone who registers for either of the programs will get a copy of this conversation and the one from earlier today, because they were very different, because that, again, is my magic, right? Yeah. And I will share the books and the quotes that have been shared in that as well. So even if you don't go any further with this, I hope that anyone who's listening, anyone who's taken part, has taken value and will learn something about themselves that they can take into their leadership moving forward. And I am here to have conversations with anyone who feels called to have that conversation with no obligation. This is my passion. This is where I bring my energy. This is what excites me. So, and I love this program. It's brought together so much of what I do into such an amazing container that it just lights me up. It just really excites me. Even late at night.
May I just pay you a compliment as well?
Please do.
With a lot of people that are on situations like this, where they're talking about their services and their products and what have you, they speak from a script. And having listened and watched you, you've listened to what I've said and you've responded and you've brought it into every conversation. So I know you're not winging it, but you're being intuitive and listening and being sensitive to that. And that's a massive skill. And I have to say, I compliment you on it. It's a really nice way of doing this and showing your skill as a coach.
Thank you. That's received very gracefully. And it's funny you use the term wing it. And I'll end on this because I think it's relevant, because for much of my career, I use that term. You know, I'm winging it, you know, and I've been in recruitment training, project management, so many things in the last 26 years of my career, right? And often I would use that term quite dismissively of myself, right? I'm just winging it, right? And it took me doing some of this work with some amazing coaches and in some amazing programs and in some amazing leadership programs to realize, to bring consciousness and awareness to that unbelievable skill that I have that brings all of me to the work that I do in a way that is very unique. And I have recognized that. And it is something that what I create comes from that now. And that's part of and I use the word quite a lot, and people use it about me, is the magic that I create. Yeah. And it is possible for anyone who comes and does this work with me. And that's the bit that I want to offer people. This magic is not something that happens to me and it's not available to anyone else. There'll be a different version of it, a different nuance of it, like you say, but that is available for everyone if they're willing to come and do this work with me. So I'm going to leave on that note. And thank you very much for a very heartfelt compliment received heart to heart.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much for being here, Sally. And I'm going to include all your wonderful stuff on the email that goes out to people as well. And if anybody out there, for all those same reasons that Sally's just talked about me, is that I could hold a mirror up to Sally for that as well. And that compliment could bounce right back to you. Okay. So if anybody is interested in what Sally does, either because it's something they need in their life or just to see how that kind of approach to business and leadership works in the real world, reach out and have a conversation with Sally. It will be well worth your time. Thank you so much, my darling. Go and have a nice cup of tea before bed. You take really good care of yourself, and I shall speak to you real soon. And thank you everyone who's taken the time to listen tonight as well. See you soon. Bye. Bye.